For those that have never done yin yoga before, or that are newer to yin yoga, we purposely take the poses a lot slower, holding them a lot longer, because this gives us a chance to get past the yang tissues. So past just the muscular level, and it helps us to get into some of the yin tissues, or in other words, the connective fascia, the joints, the ligaments, even stretching the bones themselves out. And this leads us to a place where overall flexibility is improved and the circulation is allowed to really freely flow to all areas of the body. So many benefits. And it's that simple process of slowing down, not being so rushed all the time. So I love it because it helps me bring a greater balance to my practice. One of the intentions that we'll keep in the back of the mind as we travel through our journey today is the idea of cooling down the summer heat. So summer heat is like what I just mentioned, that yang activity. It's the going, it's the doing, it's the growing of the fruit, it's the activity. And when we get too much yang, we tend to get very anxious or heated or even angry. And so this is a practice to help us cool down from that summer heat and to slow down. And so as we get into each of the poses today, the first thing that we're going to do is take a special yogic breath that does help to cool the body down. We'll do at least 3 rounds of it. You can do more if you wish. That cooling breath can either be inhaling through a taco tongue, like a straw, or if you cannot do the taco tongue, you spread out your lips so that you can breathe into the teeth, like a swamp cooler either way. So the inhale would be 3 of those rounds through the mouth, nice and deep. The exhale is just normal out the nose. And so that'll be what helps us to cool down. After we do the 3 breaths like that, each time we get into a new pose, then we will return to the ujjayi breath, which is the one with a light constriction of the throat. If you ever have trouble finding it, I'll make the sound and then close my jaw halfway through, and that's that same constriction that I'm looking for. And then you try to keep that same constriction through both the inhale and the exhale, almost like a Darth Vader or like an ocean wave passing through the throat. Okay, so that's the idea that will lead us into the practice, that cooling down, slowing down, and just enjoying the summer without taking in so much of the heat. So we're going to slowly build up the first pose here with that intention. And so we're going to start off with the right knee coming into the chest. The right knee will start to head over into a twist to the left. This is the first half of the pose. The pose is cat chasing its tail. But if this is all the further you want to go, this is a good stopping spot. If you're taking the full pose, the next step would be to grab the right hand onto those bottom toes so that you're setting the bottom leg up in a quad stretch. This would be the next higher variation. And then the third option would be also extending the top leg straight so that you're getting a hamstring stretch, a twist, and a quad stretch. So you choose which variation is good. And know that you don't have to be completely still the whole time. You can continue to explore. But as we're settling into this shape, let's take those 3 breaths together, the cooling breath. Exhale out the nose. Good. You can always take more if you wish, especially if you feel any heated emotions start to come up. Take it to help cool it down like a swamp cooler. And in moments when you're not in that breath, we return to the ujjayi breath, that nice constriction of the throat. Poses continue to be held for the duration of 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the pose. And so it's an invitation not necessarily to be still the whole time, but it's an invitation to be deep the whole time. So perhaps you start off in an extremely deep space, and as we continue to go through it, maybe you realize, oh, I'm not really in a stretch anymore. So that would be the moment to start exploring and finding the next place to rest. Keep the breath flowing. Using that as our connection to the present moment. So let's take our last 3 breaths from this shape. And you're welcome to start coming out of it. Don't feel any rush coming out. Just slowly unwind your body. Our body doesn't like to rush when it's been so deep. Once you get your hips planted again, maybe 2 windshield wipers over to the right and the left, and once more each side. Good. A slow release toward the second side. Perhaps right leg just straightens out. Left knee comes in. It begins to head to the twist. Again, this is a great spot. Maybe left hand grabs that bottom foot for the quad stretch. Maybe top leg straightens, sliding the hand further down the leg. All of these are optional. And so as we feel our muscles starting to relax into this shape, whatever it is, let's take our 3 cooling breaths. Feel the muscles release even deeper. Feel that nice ujjayi breath, that constriction of the throat happening. If ever you even reach a point that it's not feeling good to stay exactly as you are, you can always even back off to a more comfortable place. That's always fine in yin yoga. And here we start to consider the idea of balance. If all we had was yin, darkness, we would have an eternal winter. Eventually life would not be able to thrive. On the other side, too much sun can also be not helpful. We get sunburns. Even plants can get sunburned. There's a perfect balance we're striving to find. Just enough sunlight, just enough darkness. Enough work and enough rest. That our body's able to recover, rejuvenate, and also make progress. see if there's a deeper release available for the next 3 breaths. And after that 3rd cycle, again, it's a slow unwind. You can either take windshield wipers once again, or you can hug your knees into the chest and do a couple of nice little circles for the low back. It's whatever feels the very best, the very kindest for our body right here. Continue to take these gentle movements until you reach the point where your body's saying, okay, I'm feeling good, all of my muscles, all my joints are feeling integrated again. And so then at that point, we're going to start heading to the next shape. In this next shape, you can just flip around onto your belly from here, or you can turn yourself around on the mat if you prefer to face toward the front of the mat. So personal preference. On our bellies, we're going to take a shoulder stretch. The right arm is going to take a nice straight line directly up to the right. If you take a moment to rest your head down, you should have the middle finger aligned with your eyes. So that's the slightly upward rather than downward. From there, flip your cheek over. So we're resting on the right cheek. And then we start pressing into the left hand until we bring that right shoulder into a stretch. So it's a different ending place for everybody. For some people, stacking the hips is enough. Some people, that's too much. For some people, the top leg continues to rotate back, even planting. And for some people, that's too much. So I don't want you to injure the shoulder. I want you to bring the shoulder into a kind stretch, whatever that looks like right here, right now. And as we settle into this shape as well, let's take those 3 cycles of cooling breath. And then the release into the Ujjayi breath. Sometimes if you start to realize, oh, the shoulder's not stretching anymore, there is another place we can go deeper, and that would be taking the left hand also behind you. Sometimes it's able to touch and you can clasp the fingers together. Sometimes that's way too intense and it's more just kind of resting behind your back. So only if that feels better, you can start to head there, but don't feel any pressure to. There's no one right or one wrong way to do this. As long as we're checking in with our body constantly, we're doing it perfectly. So head to those last 2 relaxed breaths. And a nice, kind, gentle release back down. As we're recovering, roll onto your left side body and just let this right arm do a couple of circles. Just nice loosening up, recovery for that shoulder. Whenever that feels good, we start to head to the second side. So back onto the belly. Left arm to the left. Middle finger in line with the eyes. Left cheek down. And gently begin to head into the shape. I personally love it best when my head's relaxing, but you can play with different variations as well. And just notice, does this half of the body feel the same as the other half? What's going on here? Making sure to include our 3 cooling breaths if we haven't already. And settling even deeper and toward our ujjayi, constricted breathing and throat. Making this slightly easier would be rolling slightly forward. Making it slightly deeper would be taking the right hand behind us in any arrangement. And 3 more slow, relaxing breaths. Only when the third one finishes. Do the same recovery shape, rolling onto the right side body so that that left arm can walk around in circles. When that feels good, we press our way up toward either a high kneeling place or sitting back on the feet for a moment. An additional moment for the shoulder is a huge hug. You're going to take your right elbow on top for the first part. You touch your shoulders and perhaps continue to walk your hands clear to hug onto the shoulder blades. Try to, once you're in the shape, try to relax the shoulders down. Away from the ears, long neck. And just notice how this one's getting the opposite part of the shoulder just lightly, nothing too much. Sometimes I'll even rotate the shoulders forward to create more space in between the shoulder blades. One more breath. And then open up the arms. And this time left goes on top. Walking back just about the same amount of time. Find the way to get the shoulders and the neck to stretch open. One more breath. And then open. Good. From here, we head into a yoga squat. We plant our feet. Try to get the feet to go flat. So usually I have to go just slightly wider than my hips. And then we press open.
Can we use it now?
Go ahead. Yeah, right ahead. Yeah, this one can be really intense. So they're in the white one. There we go. Good. Then you height of that block as well. Yeah. Good. Okay, as we're settling into the shape, same thing. 3 cooling breaths. Keep that breath rolling constantly like an ocean wave. I will say here, this one can get extremely intense after a little while. The next shape we will take in a moment is straightening the legs and dangling forward. So if anybody needs to head out of this sooner than others and just head straight to the dangling shape, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Otherwise, we've got a little bit more time here. Try to see what the body wants to relax into with this shape. Maybe it's the low back. Maybe it's all those areas right around the sacrum. Maybe it's more in the hips, yourself pushing open with the elbows. And maybe you're even focusing on the neck, maybe rolling around just a little bit. Notice how breathing into the belly is possible here. So here we're in our last 3 breaths through this shape. Dropping the hands down. We allow ourselves to straighten the legs. You can keep the feet a little bit wider, or you can bring them slightly narrower. This is personal preference here. Feel the head release. No tension keeping the head lifted. Arms can be on the floor, on legs, hugging around. It's whatever's the highest good for the body. And it's only you that will know the highest good. So find that release. And then we take our 3 cooling breaths. And after that 3rd breath, we find ourselves in a very introspective shape. A shape that allows us to tune deeply into the processes that are going on within. As we're purposely heading toward the yin, the darker, cooler side of life, we realize that, generally speaking, the deepest enlightenment only comes after the dark night of the soul, after letting us really be with some of the deep stuff, some of the harder emotions. And as we're helping to raise our vibration, those of us that do see light in the dark times, we're helping others to, the collective, really, to help raise them to get to that spot too. Let's see if there's a slightly deeper way to release, and we'll take the last 5 breaths here. Legs long, the body happy. Walk your way for a moment into a downward facing dog shape. Just feel how the spine and the arms, the legs are engaged just slightly differently. And then our neck shape is going to be lowered all the way down to our belly. We take a back bend. This can absolutely just be Sphinx pose the whole time. We'll all at least start here. And I'll offer variations to go deeper if anybody wants to go there in a little while. But imagine in this shape, it's as if the moon has come out from behind the clouds. There's a little bit more light than beautiful, a little bit more lightness. So from here, let's take our 3 cooling breaths. As the body continues to relax, don't feel like you are obligated to be in any shape. Usually in yang yoga classes, more of the regular yoga, we are bringing ourselves into the deepest variation possible. And that is okay if that's what feels good. But there's nothing wrong with just collapsing into the skeletal system, even letting the head dangle. Your back will still be getting that nice opener without us having to necessarily muscularly be there for it. Notice if the natural tendency of the body and of the mind is toward activity. Crazy thoughts just coming at us over and over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we're becoming aware of it. We're coming into a place where we're recognizing that it's happening rather than just being so caught up in the process of the whole time. From here, if anybody does wish to go a little bit deeper in the back bend, we take seal pose. Hands are a little bit wider than the mat. Arms are straight. And if this is too much, you simply walk hands forward. If you want more, you walk hands backwards. Personal preference for all of it. Constantly tuning into the body, making sure that the body is safe. We're not clenching anything like the vertebrae that don't need to be clenched and squeezed together. So with where you're at, let's take those deep breaths, last 3 in this shape. And after all 3, take just a couple of breaths heading back into child pose. So the spine, all those muscles of the back getting to release into the opposite shape from what we were just doing. So our next 3 shapes are similar to what we just did, where one shape can evolve to the next, and then the next, and the next. There will ultimately be 3 options to get deeper and deeper as we go. Know that this one will be on the knee intensely, so if you need to ever roll over part of the mat to add a little bit of padding under the knee, that's beautiful. We'll keep the right knee underneath us. Left foot will step forward, heading into lizard pose. So this can be up on wrists the whole time, both hands to the inside of the foot. This can be dropped down onto right elbow. It can even be left elbow down. You can play with it, up and down, back and forth. It's whatever seems to be working okay. So then the next shape, if anybody chooses to go into it, would be starting to inch the toes forward. So this one's called gecko. So rather than the lizard being right next to us, this one's a gecko, so a bit further. This may be easiest on the hands. You could also try to drop one elbow down to have a little bit more of a release. This one does still have a little bit of bend. The next shape we're taking after this is the straight leg. So nice half transition toward it. And then if anybody wants to work on straightening the front leg, heading toward half splits, or even sinking further, close as deep to the splits as you want to go. These options are all welcome. If we haven't included that cooling breath at all during this time, let's take it now. Last breath. And then just back off to the point where we can head into a pigeon pose. That left leg tucks in, perhaps the full release all the way down into sleeping pigeon. Yay! It's a good time. And this again is not a required place to go, but if anybody wishes to join the shoulders back into this pose, kind of taking things full circle, you start to rest the left shoulder a little bit further downward, and maybe the right arm comes around your back. We'll take a little bit of time on each side before we switch out our legs. So this would be left side. This one goes against the twist. So then now as we head to right shoulder down, it's going with the twist. Your whole body spirals. If the left hand can go around the back, maybe you can grab the toes. And just continue to open the shoulders. So last deep inhale here. Exhale, take all the time you need to unwind. When you have both knees underneath your body, take a few hip circles, whether this is tracing circles all the way or even just wagging your tail. A nice loosening, opening quality. Maybe a cat and a cow. And when we feel ready for the second side, we begin to step the right foot forward. Maybe left knee already takes the mat. And as we're in lizard, don't feel any pressure to go too deep too soon. But if you ever want to drop down to an elbow or both, that is a place where we can head. Perhaps let's do those 3 cooling breaths right here. And just a few more breaths before we begin to shift deeper, if your body's okay with it. So then if you're ready, perhaps come up to your hands. Just start inching those toes slightly forward, the knees still a little bit bent. And remember, you can be on hands. Maybe you try on elbows, see if it's doable. Don't feel any pressure. From here, beginning to work it toward a straight. This can again be half splits, or perhaps you continue to sink the hips forward, closer toward full splits. Last 2 breaths right here. And then scoot back to the point where you can swing the right foot to the left side, heading into that beautiful pigeon. Trying to get our body rested down onto the elbows. Perhaps 3 cooling breaths before we head into those twists. Good. So if you like the twists, we can start off with the right shoulder trying to work its way down. A nice opposing twist to what's happening in the hips. Unwind. Left shoulder down. Feel yourself release into the opening if this is what's feeling okay for the body. And just 3 more relaxing Ujjayi breaths. And as we unwind this time, we end up sitting down. We can return to those nice windshield wipers with the knees for a moment. Making sure all those connections through the hips, the hamstrings, even the spine, they're all feeling good and integrated together. Beautiful. Our next shape, you can go wide on the mat or you can go forward on your mat, whatever feels best. We take our legs wide. Just enjoying that nice opening after all the stretches we just did. This is one of my favorite yin poses because this is one where I feel like holding longer is definitely extremely helpful. So we start off with that nice tall posture. Our nice central channel aligned, and then we begin just a very gradual process of starting to lean forward. So sometimes we find a good spot just to be. Sometimes we use each exhale to invite us an inch deeper. Don't feel any rush to head into it. This is a slow journey. And let's incorporate those 3 cooling breaths. Eventually, at a certain depth, a little bit of roundedness to the spine is okay, helping you to find just a simple release. Try to keep the legs slightly engaged just to make sure the second toe is pointing upward. We're here just 3 more breaths, so see if there's a beautiful release that can happen for these next few. Our slow journey up takes us back up to sit. Both legs coming together. Let's start to work our way down onto our backs. we'll take 2 brief recovery poses after that. The first one is just a couple of breaths with happy baby. Grabbing onto the feet. Wiggles or stillness. And then releasing the hands, send the knees into a twist to the left. And a twist to the right. And then ultimately, releasing into Shavasana, whatever Shavasana wants to look like for us today. It doesn't have to be the normal variation we might always think of. This can be bent knees, it can be open cobbler knees. It can even be a fetal position, just rolling off to a side. Whatever allows us to be peacefully right here. Let's find a beautiful 3 cooling breaths to lead us in toward our Shavasana today. And that third one comes a deep release. Feel body, mind, and soul coming into stillness, darkness, the essence of yin. Slowly invite our body to come back to this present moment. If we drifted to beautiful infinite places, let your breath go deep and full. Little wiggles to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Rolling over toward a beautiful fetal position. And And listen to your body to know how much time we should stay here in fetal position. As we're coming back to this moment, to this space, to the quality of presence. Only rising up to sit when we feel fully here. And as our hands join together in front of our hearts, we remember that as we travel into this very yang world, this busy, active world full of emotions and heat, we can travel into that summer land with this quality of cooling and stillness. We can take this cooling breath into the heat. We can take slowing down into our days. So with this essence of yin to help lead us into this beautiful week, let's wrap up this wonderful time we got to share together with the sound of Om. Enjoying a deep inhale now. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.